Jerusalem began not with a bang, but with a trickle of water. The Gihon Spring, a life-giving source in a parched land, drew the first settlers. These were the Canaanites, long before the famous names of kings and prophets echoed through its valleys. They built a small, fortified settlement on a narrow hill, the city of David. They called it Ur-Salim, a modest outpost, a tiny speck on the map of the ancient Near East. Its position on the watershed ridge between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea gave it a strategic, if quiet, importance. A city waiting for its destiny to be written. The early inhabitants, the Jebusites. They held the fortress for centuries, the steep slopes a natural defense. Jerusalem's name appears in Egyptian execration texts, 19th century BCE. Even then, the hill town was on the radar of empires, a vassal city paying tribute to the pharaohs of Egypt. A minor player in the grand game of power, life, the seasons, the harvest, and the constant need for security. The Jebusites clung to their rock, unaware of the grander story to come. Everything changed with a new power, the Israelites, led by King David, a warrior poet. Around 1000 BCE, David launched his attack. Joab led a daring raid, possibly through the very water shaft that gave the city life, and captured the fortress. Jerusalem's holiness is a story of layers, built one upon the other. For Judaism, it all began with the temple. Solomon's temple, a wonder of cedar, gold, stone, was the physical manifestation of God's covenant with the Jewish people. It was the center of the universe, the axis mundi where heaven and earth met. Pilgrims from across the land would ascend to the city 3 times a year for the great festivals, their voices filling the streets with prayer and song. The city was not just a political capital, it was the spiritual nucleus of a nation. To pray toward Jerusalem was to orient oneself toward God. Its sanctity was absolute, woven into the very fabric of Jewish identity. Centuries later, a new chapter of holiness was written. During the Roman occupation, a Jewish preacher from the Galilee named Jesus of Nazareth entered the city. His final days unfolded against the backdrop of its ancient stones. He taught in the temple courts. He shared a Last Supper with his disciples. He prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was crucified on a hill outside the city walls called Golgotha. For his followers, the Christians, these events transformed Jerusalem. The passion, the death, the resurrection of their Savior. The empty tomb became the ultimate symbol of hope and divine promise. Jerusalem was not yet finished with its revelations. In the 7th century CE, another voice emerged from the Arabian desert. The Prophet Muhammad was said to have been taken on a miraculous night journey, the Isra and Miraj. From Mecca, he was transported to the farthest mosque. Muslims identify that farthest mosque as the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. From there, he ascended to the heavens, meeting the prophets who came before him. This event cemented Jerusalem's place as the 3rd holiest city in Islam, after Mecca and Medina. The city became known as Al-Quds, the Holy. Thus, one small piece of land became uniquely sacred to 3 great monotheistic faiths, a shared and often competing sanctity unlike any other city on earth, a spiritual magnet drawing billions of souls toward its hallowed ground. Jerusalem's story is one of constant conquest. Its sacred status made it a prize beyond measure. The first great cataclysm came in 586 BCE. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylonian armies swept through Judah. After a brutal siege, they breached Jerusalem's walls. They did not just conquer the city, they annihilated it. Solomon's temple was plundered and burned. The city's elite were deported to Babylon in chains. Jerusalem lay a smoldering ruin, its people exiled. The destruction of the first temple would echo for millennia. Yet Jerusalem rose again. The Persians defeated Babylon. Cyrus the Great issued a decree allowing exiles to return. Builders completed the Second Temple around 516 BCE. It restored Jerusalem as the center of Jewish life. For 5 centuries, the city lived under foreign rule, Persian, Greek, Alexander the Great, and Hellenistic successors. Internal strife led to the Maccabean revolt. That victory is remembered in Hanukkah. Roman legions arrived in 63 BCE. Rome installed Herod the Great as client king. Herod embarked on colossal building projects. His crowning work, renovating and expanding the Second Temple. Roman rule stayed harsh, resentment grew. In 66 CE, a revolt erupted. Zealots fought fiercely, but were outmatched. In 70 CE, General Titus besieged Jerusalem. The siege was savage. Suffering inside the walls was unimaginable. After months of starvation and infighting, the Romans broke through. They massacred the population and set the temple ablaze. Herod's magnificent structure was utterly destroyed. Jerusalem was razed. The Romans built Aelia Capitolina on the ruins and forbade Jews entry. Once more, the heart of Judaism had been torn out. After the Roman destruction, Jerusalem was remade as a Christian city. Under the Byzantine Empire, churches, monasteries sprang up. Emperor Constantine and his mother, Helena, championed this transformation. They identified the holy sites of Jesus' life and commissioned grand basilicas, most notably the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. For several centuries, Jerusalem was a jewel of the Byzantine Empire, a Christian center of worship and monasticism. Its Jewish past was buried. This Christian dominance was shattered in 638 CE. The armies of Islam, bursting out of the Arabian Peninsula, arrived. The Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab entered the city peacefully. In a remarkable act of respect, he refused to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, fearing his followers might later turn it into a mosque. Instead, he prayed on the Temple Mount, which had lain in ruins for centuries. The Umayyad caliphs who followed built the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, cementing the city's Islamic character. Centuries of Muslim rule followed, but the memory of a Christian Jerusalem lingered in Europe. In 1095, Pope Urban II called for a holy war, the First Crusade. In 1099, after a long and bloody campaign, Crusader knights stormed the city's walls. What followed was a horrific massacre of the city's Muslim and Jewish inhabitants. The Crusaders established the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem, turning mosques back into churches and ruling for nearly a century. A violent intrusion in a long history of conquest. In 1187, the great Muslim Sultan, Saladin, united surrounding forces and decisively defeated the Crusaders at Hattin. He then reconquered Jerusalem. In a mirror of Omar's compassion, Saladin offered generous terms, allowing many Christians to ransom themselves and leave peacefully. For centuries, the city was ruled by Muslim dynasties, from the Ayyubids to the Mamluks, and finally, in 1517, the Ottoman Turks. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the city walls we see today were built, giving Jerusalem its iconic profile. Stone upon stone, faith upon faith, the silhouette that endures. For 400 years, from 1517 to 1917, Jerusalem was a provincial backwater of the vast Ottoman Empire. The magnificent walls built by Suleiman enclosed a city that was poor, neglected, shrinking. Its population dwindled, yet its spiritual importance never faded. Small communities of Jews, Christians, Muslims clung to their holy sites, lives intertwined in coexistence and quiet rivalry. In the 19th century, European powers took renewed interest, establishing consulates, hospitals, churches. Jewish communities from Europe and from the Middle East began to return in greater numbers, building new neighborhoods outside the ancient walls for the first time in centuries. The Ottoman era ended during World War I. In December 1917, the British general Edmund Allenby walked into the city, famously on foot, ending 4 centuries of Turkish rule. Jerusalem was now the capital of the British Mandate for Palestine. Tensions rose between the growing Jewish population and the Arab inhabitants. The city became a flashpoint. Zionism clashed with Palestinian Arab nationalism. Riots and violence became increasingly common as both sides vied for the city's future. After the British departure in 1948 and the creation of the State of Israel, war erupted. Jerusalem was divided. The western part became Israel's capital. The eastern part, including the Old City and its holy sites, was controlled by Jordan. A brutal border of concrete walls and barbed wire sliced through neighborhoods, separating families and friends. For 19 years, Jews were denied access to their holiest sites, including the Western Wall, Jerusalem as symbol of a divided world. In 1967, Israeli forces captured East Jerusalem, reuniting the city under its control. The walls came down, and for the first time in 2 millennia, Jerusalem was a unified city under Jewish sovereignty. Yet, this unification is not recognized by much of the world. Palestinians in East Jerusalem face a complex and uncertain future. Today, Jerusalem remains a vibrant, sprawling metropolis, a center of innovation and culture, but also a city of deep-seated tensions, a city of prayer and conflict, of ancient stones and modern cranes, where the past is never past, and where the hopes and fears of billions continue to converge.